What if I told you that a piece of cloth stitched red, stamped with a hammer and sickle, carried the weight of empires, secret treaties, mass starvation, and staged victory? That the same banner which inspired millions also helped hide some of the century's darkest crimes? For centuries, red had meant danger, blood, and revolution. By the late 19th century, it had become the color of rebellion, from the Jacobins to the Paris Commune, a color taken up by workers and radicals who believed a new world was possible. The Bolsheviks seized that color in 1917, but what they created was not merely a symbol of workers' unity. Over the next decades, that flag would be redesigned, weaponized, and placed on the world's capitals, sometimes to liberate, other times to occupy. Where did a simple red banner become a state signature, and at what cost? Before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. The story begins in the smoke of revolution. The plain red flag, long used by socialist groups, became the rallying cloth of the October Revolution. When the new Soviet state formed, it moved to transform party iconography into national heraldry. On the 30th of December 1922, the Congress that declared the formation of the USSR also declared the nation's right to have a flag, coat of arms, and seal. What began as a party banner had become the state standard. Over the next year, official descriptions were refined and codified. By 31st January 1924, the Soviet Constitution described the national banner that would fly for decades. But the plain red was only the canvas. In 1923 to 1924, a new emblem was placed in the canton, the hammer and sickle, surmounted by a five-pointed star. Each changed to the design, small shifts to the hammer's handle, the sickle's curve, the star's outline, was recorded in legal statutes and decrees. This was not accidental ornamentation, but careful state crafting. What did these symbols mean? The hammer was the worker, the sickle, the peasant. Together, a visual promise of the socialist alliance that would build a new economy and society. The five-pointed red star stood for the Communist Party and its goal of international revolution. These were not ephemeral motifs. They were crafted, argued over, and debated by the new Soviet leadership. In fact, early proposals even considered adding a sword because it was too militaristic, famously insisting, in effect, that the revolution's emblem should not look like a weapon. The symbolism was deliberate and aspirational. Unity, worker-peasant partnership, the march to a global communist future. But symbols can be hollowed out. When a state controls every narrative, schools, media, film, posters, monuments, those symbols become less about possibility and more about power. But symbols only hold power if people believe in them. What happens when belief is manufactured by censorship, terror, and the rewriting of truth? From the 1920s into the 1930s, the Soviet flag became the stage curtain behind the Kremlin's performance. It draped official events, hung from factory halls, and filled the pages of newspapers. The cult of personality around Stalin took those images further. Banners and posters stitched the leader's image to the flag's promise of progress, while the same machinery of messaging erased inconvenient facts. At the same time, the state's darker machinery tightened. The Great Purge, 1936 to 1938, was accompanied by public show trials and a steady stream of repressive decrees. The flag flew dutifully while the state removed its own people in secret and in public. Thousands were denounced as enemies of the people, paraded in court, and executed or sent to labor camps. The banner, a promise of liberation, hung over a regime increasingly defined by fear. Even famine became a political battleground. In 1932 to 1933, the famine that struck Soviet Ukraine, the Holodomor, killed millions. The state suppressed the scale of the tragedy, denied foreign relief, criminalized gleaning, and punished those who spoke out. Orders, quotas, and a security apparatus turned scarcity into a tool. The public face of the state, the red banner and triumphant propaganda, remained unblemished while whole communities starved. The most basic truth that millions were dying was treated as anti-Soviet fiction. Into those gaps walked writers and survivors, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Anne Applebaum, and countless anonymous voices described how the camp system and the state's secrecy masked brutality under slogans and flags. Their pages and testimonies peeled back the red cloth to reveal the machines beneath. The Soviet flag's reach did not stop at borders. In 1939, the USSR signed a pact with Nazi Germany that included secret protocols dividing Eastern Europe into spheres of influence, a diplomatic cover that cleared the way for invasions and annexations. Those secret lines on paper would be enforced with tanks and then rubber-stamped by puppet governments, and the red flag would be hoisted over cities that had once flown different colors. June 1940. The Baltic states were occupied and annexed. Their national flags were outlawed. The red banners of the Soviet republics replaced them. Small nations saw their symbols removed, their elites deported, their history rewritten, while the Soviet flag waved above new administrative buildings and military parades. And then there was the image that would echo for a generation, the Soviet flag over the Reichstag in Berlin, the photograph that declared victory over Nazi Germany. The photo by Yevgeny Khalday, taken 2nd of May 1945, became an iconic symbol of triumph. But there's a darker cinematic twist. The scene was staged and edited to amplify drama. The banner that symbolized liberation had itself been used as a carefully produced message, a provocation, a symbol pressed into service to write the story the state wanted told. These were banners of liberation on one page of history. On the next, the same banners masked the mechanics of occupation and the disappearance of dissent. Symbols live inside people. In the Baltic towns where the blue-black-white, Estonian, or the yellow-red-white, Lithuanian flags were banned, ordinary citizens resisted quietly. Private flags sewn in basements, secret meetings, and clandestine memories passed between families. The red flag flown over administrative buildings became a daily reminder of loss and exile. When the USSR's iron grip loosened in the 1980s, these same banned banners returned to streets and parliament buildings as acts of national reclamation. In Hungary, 1956, protesters cut out the communist emblem from their national flag to signal rejection. An image of a hole in the center of a flag became an enduring symbol of defiance. In city squares and university steps, the flag, both a symbol and a target, was central to the psychology of resistance. Behind these public acts are private tragedies, families broken by arrests, letters censored, graves unmarked. Writers who survived the camps described being surrounded by photographs and banners that claimed history was being made, while the reality of loss, punishment, and fear went unacknowledged. These are the human stories a flag's gloss can't hide. The Soviet flag's legal form changed repeatedly. Early constitutional descriptions in 1923 to 1924. Refinements to the emblem through the 1920s and 1930s, and a final widely used statutory description in 1955 that standardized the hammer, sickle, and star proportions used through the late Soviet era. The banner remained the USSR's national flag until the state dissolved in 1991, but the image outlived the empire. The victory banner, the flag raised in Berlin, remains a symbolic national treasure of Russia to this day. A piece of cloth that was turned into a talisman defining a nation's self-image as liberator and victor. That legacy complicates modern politics because the memory of World War II is still a central pillar in official Russian narratives about the state and its legitimacy. Here's a small and chilling connection. The red flag's lineage, from the Paris Commune's torn banners to Soviet halls, was literally honored in Moscow. Delegates from the French Communist Party brought an original commune banner to Lenin's tomb in the early Soviet years. Revolution's relics were curated, canonized, and placed beside the leader. The same cloth that had once signaled defiance in Paris had been made into a relic for a new regime. That act of turning banners into relics is a symbolic thread tying 19th century uprisings to 20th century state power. And the Molotov-Ribbentrop Secret Protocol, a piece of paper hidden in diplomatic files, shows how flags can follow the lines drawn by men in rooms, secret maps, tacit agreements, and the transfer of borders. The red banners were raised not simply by the will of liberation, but sometimes as markers of collusion and occupation. The very same standard that inspired workers also became the flag of territories parceled out in secret deals. The Soviet flag is more than fabric and gold thread. It is a historical device, a symbol designed, polished, and used, often simultaneously, as inspiration and as cover. It unified and legitimized. It inspired idealism and facilitated terror. Nations write stories with their symbols. Sometimes those stories are hopeful, sometimes they hide the ledger of power. When a state insists its iconography is sacred, when the flag is both shrine and billboard, the risk grows that the banner will be used to seal over inconvenient truths. Understanding the flag's history helps us read many such banners across the globe and to ask what's being hidden under their folds today. If one flag can hide revolution and repression, how many more banners around the world are stitched with quiet crimes? If you want the next film, where we unpick the secret origins of another national symbol, subscribe and we'll pull the next thread together. So, what do you think makes the Soviet flag unforgettable? Is there something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more insider stories that reveal the true details of countries' identities and their flags. This video was selected to be made by people over at the Secrets of Nation file on Facebook, which you can go to and vote on future video topics. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Then I sincerely hope that you'll subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time with another new video.